Well, it's always a delight and a surprise to be welcomed back by a community who knows me all too well. And I was remembering seeing Thomas and Krista. I moved to River Falls in about 1974, and we were involved in the founding of the Whole Earth Store. Had wonderful potlucks that included features that I think were not then legal, but I believe are legal now. And it was a fabulous time to be young in River Falls and surrounded by creative people. So it's good to be back. And I know I hope that many of the people that illuminated our days in River Falls are still around here somewhere. I just haven't uncovered them. I'm going to start and end with a poem, and this is from my first collection, Household of Joy. This is called Original Light, and this poem comes from the moment of what I do every morning, looking out over the Mississippi River with sunlight on it. When the sun ascends over limestone bluffs, the mighty Mississippi becomes a river of light, where millions of tiny stars dance on the rippling surface, and a few of them mistake themselves for the sun. But most are content to be a transient epiphany of the light that enlivens whatever it touches. When touched and transformed by original light, shine, shine, and then let go. Night will come, the black sky will fill with tiny diamonds, and the river will flow on. The sun will return another day, and so, in some form, will you. So a lot of thinking on matters religious and spiritual, I think, is grounded in just opening our eyes and hearts and minds and being willing to be changed by what we see. And today, of course, my mother's voice is saying, "Don't forget it's Easter, Teddy. Don't forget it's Easter." Mom, you are correct. It is Easter. And the word Easter is actually the name of a goddess, Astarte, Esther in English, who was the goddess of ever-returning spring. And so what we're celebrating is what I would call Eastering, the process of continual renewal. So we don't have to wait till April. If we are alive with our hearts and minds open, that process of transformation, which we can call Easter or Buddha nature, is always there. And thank goodness we are capable of continual transformation. I want you to imagine your life inside a single room, and at first it might seem quite comfortable and familiar. But over a period of time, that familiar place might begin to feel like a prison cell, where most of the world and many of the people we love are somewhere else. Luckily enough, that room in which we live much of our lives, the world of what is, has doors and windows. And those doors and windows are the manifestation of what if. What if expands our horizon and allows us to imagine life outside our comfort zone and maybe even try something new and then carefully observe the results. Now, I have been trained and even rewarded for endless analysis, and I can testify to the excitement, fun, and discoveries that come from trying something new. At seminary, I was taught that a UU service was a sermon salad. There were spoken words at the beginning, there were spoken words at the end, and somewhere in the middle was the sermon. And the sermon was supposed to be the highlight. But then I started living with and in congregations where I was not preaching, and I was able to begin to appreciate how much of the service was about making connections, building community, regardless of what the so-called message was. Every announcement, every sigh, every yawn testified to the complex and tender texture of life in community. Announcements of births and deaths, new jobs and old friends, all revealed and served the important work of building community heart to heart, mind to mind. Now, when I was a kid, I would get home from church, and my mother would turn and say, "Okay, Theodore, you seem to be nodding off in the sermon. What was the gist of the sermon today? Why were we there?" And I would have a punchline. And the punchline is building communities heart to heart, mind to mind. I came to understand that what if and what is, the possible and the actual, are not adversaries. They are complementary. They are partners. What is creates our familiar lives, but what if opens the doors and windows to new possibility. To live fully, we need both what is and what if. The house of being in which we live needs walls for stability and comfort, but it also needs windows and doors to make us aware of and allow us to care about the world around us. Do you remember a time in your life when you felt deeply that it was time for a change, and then suddenly something presented itself? Who or what encouraged you to try something new? Now, there are some core principles that undergird the process of transformation. One is, how do we learn about the power of letting go? If we're constantly holding on to life as we have experienced it, it's very hard to change unless something or someone persuades us to loosen our grip and open our hands and open our hearts. In those moments of transformation, who encouraged you to try something new? Who helped you imagine a new life that might have possibilities that were not fully present in your current life? How did you learn to develop courage in the face of uncertainty? Instead of viewing it as a threat, but you began to consider that uncertainty was an invitation to try something new. So what we're talking about is the ways in which letting go, turning loose, opening to the as yet unknown creates new possibilities or allow us to see possibilities that are there anyway. Stepping stones to creative change. One is enhanced resilience. If we can learn the art of resetting setbacks into opportunities to grow, then something new can emerge. Second feature is increased creativity. When we open our heart and mind to new possibilities, instead of holding on to what is familiar, new things can happen of their own accord. We just have to loosen our grip, open our hearts, open our minds, and the world around us sometimes becomes instructive. Personal growth sometimes requires us to move outside our comfort zone. It's not going to necessarily be easy, but if we're willing to open our hearts and minds and senses to something new, a new life can begin. So there are some things that we can do to encourage these possibilities. One, of course, is prayer or meditation, where in different ways, either with words or without words, we open ourselves to something that is beyond our senses. Another helpful tool is to reframe our perspective. Instead of seeing obstacles, we begin to understand that these can be challenges which we need in order to take the next step. And if you've been with a child who's learning to walk and can remember that those first few steps are very awkward and very difficult, sometimes punctuated by falls. But without taking those first steps, none of us would be walking. Another thing we can do is to cultivate gratitude. We can choose, if we want, to focus on what we have rather than what we lack. We can develop this awareness of abundance that sometimes expresses itself as joy and sometimes expresses itself as gratitude. A good watchword is just to notice and intend that at least 3 times every day you find something to say thank you for. It might be thanking your partner, it might be thanking a neighbor, it might be thanking the guy who managed to get his car out of the ditch, without requiring our help. But these little thank yous can help grow a culture of mutual support. We can start small. We can see small changes and bring undivided awareness to those rather than waiting for something cosmic. And sometimes those little changes are where significant change for individuals and communities begin. We can work to build a community of supportive allies. And, many of you I've known for 25 or 30 years. Thomas and Krista and I were aspiring hippies 50 years ago. How did we get this old? How did we do that? And 52 years ago, we were working to build the Whole Earth store, and that community, we didn't have a church. There actually was a Unitarian group that was meeting in River Falls. I worked with the wife of one of the founders who knew that I was about to go off to Unitarian seminary. She never told me, oh, there's a Unitarian group in town. So because we didn't have a Unitarian group, the Whole Earth store, for many of us, was the center of community life, and it still is a wonderful place to be. Not just for beans and rice, but for community and friends. So this community of supportive allies is invaluable in becoming all that we can become. And that's why places like this congregation, or wherever you go for community, are part of the process of constructive change. So I invite you to do an experiment for the next 24 hours. The next time you encounter an obstacle, consider the possibility that it might be an opportunity to try something new. When you find yourself saying, I can't, where might this lead? How could this invite something new to enhance my life? Practicing the art of opening ourselves to new possibilities can open many doors to a new life. And embracing possibility is not about having all the answers. It's about opening doors to the unknown and be willing to ask questions, especially when we don't know the answer yet. To be willing to be dazzled, to be willing to be surprised. Just ask yourself and your neighbors, what if? And notice how doors all open to new possibilities, what the good book calls life more abundant. So be it. What if? Blessed be. That's the short summary. So if someone asks you when you get home today, or a neighbor asks, what did they talk about in that Unitarian church across the road? Say, so be it. What if? Blessed be. 2 exclamation points, and right in the middle a question mark. So be it. What if? Blessed be. So be it. What if? Blessed be. I may put that on my tombstone. Not yet. Not yet. But that would not be a bad summary. So, in our tradition, the minister eventually is expected to shut up and listen. And it's a wonderful tradition to hold us accountable in face of the community. We just required you to sit for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes and listen. Now it's your turn. And this is one way that those of us that speak find out what you heard. We know what we thought we said, but what did you actually hear us say? So I want to open the floor. Ann Leak for questions and comments.
Ted, you sent me 3 pictures to put in the PowerPoint.
Yes.
They're on the next 3 slides.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything about those? I heard you say something connected to the pictures, but there are some pictures.
let's see the pictures, shall we? That's the open window. Yeah, that one is the room with no windows and no doors. And it's possible to live in a place like that, but not for long. And then this is a house with a whole lot of windows and doors, a whole lot of glass. And of course, each of us has a comfort level that is some mixture of windows, doors, and walls. Many of you have been to our house, lots of glass, lots of windows, lots of doors. But then we're right next to the Mississippi River. I've lived in houses with very few windows and doors, but I get uncomfortable if I can't glance out and see some daylight. Other questions and comments?
Did Daniel
Oh, no. No, that's a lot of plastic. Yeah, yes.
Well, I think it is a wonderful home and all of those windows, but who is going to wash them?
That is a really good question. It's one we're asking a lot. We've met a wonderful, very young woman somewhere in her 30s who does a lot of the work that we can no longer do. So we invite Lori to come over and clean some windows. But actually, on a good day, I can clean most of the windows in the house. The ones I can't get to are on the third floor, and we didn't build a deck adjacent to those windows, so there's no easy way to reach those. So those are the ones we leave for professionals like our friend Lori. Other questions? Yes.
Okay, just because we're not going to get off the hook this easy. It's only 11:05, right? Well, one skill that might be helpful to people when you think about what actually is and possibility and how the two come together, what are skills or techniques you can use to bring those two things together, to bring them to imagine? And one thing that I've used in the work I do is when you talk about what is, you recognize what is, you recognize all of what is, but particularly pay attention to what's good about what is.
I like that.
What's good? What do we love about what is right now that we would never change, that we would never want to let go of? And then from that, imagine the possibility by asking yourself, what would fabulous look like? What would great look like? It doesn't matter whether it's my personal life, whether it's my work, whether it's my relationship with my spouse. What would great look like? And how do I build on the good I recognize forward and take it? What would it take?
Thank you. That's one. Could change the life of my Scandinavian relatives to be asked questions like that.
So I guess mine is more about like somebody who supports me. My husband, we were having some sort of argument a few months ago, and I was like, so what is it that you saw in marrying me? He's like, because I saw all the possibilities of who you could be and knew I would be the only one who'd push you to get there. And he's like, I create the support net that lets you to go out and explore and figure out who you want to be without feeling like you're ever going to fail. So.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. And yes, I saw a hand over here.
So I wanted to thank you so much for that message. I'm at a big transition point in my life where I've lived on my farm just outside of Ellsworth for 32 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And I made the very difficult decision to sell my farm by the end of this year, but I did that because three things came together at once, and it felt like the stars were aligned, and so while I've been, a part of me has said that it will be the hardest day of my life to leave that place. Your message gave me hope and makes me believe that there are great things ahead.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thomas, did you have a comment? Let's.
I just recently came across a quote by the Russian writer Gogol. The quote is this: "Obstacles are our wings."
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yes.
Well, a couple weeks ago, Colin gave a talk. And, I've been practicing some of what he advised, which is to say, instead of "I have to do this," I get to do this. And sometimes it's sarcastic, but I'll admit that. Yeah, it counts.
Well, if sarcasm reduces blood pressure, I'm all for it.
I agree with that. I was thinking, whenever someone asks me to do something, I try to say yes to that. So trying to say yes leads me to different possibilities. This is probably not for this audience here, but maybe for others who are not here. Sometimes we look at going off in a new direction as a zero-sum game. We have to give up something that we're doing right now. Can I make room for an hour or two Sunday mornings to come to a UU service? Any advice on how to make that decision, or do we have to? Is it a zero-sum game?
Well, I think because you've got this wonderful recording system, people no longer have to make that choice. And quite frankly, some Sundays when we're at home and I'm not preaching somewhere, we tune into your television version, and it's wonderful to sit at home with a cup of tea and to see the community here coming to life. So you have enabled many people to choose what form of participation like. Any other questions? Or answers, if you have answers rather than questions, that's good.
Ted, that's a great message, and it reminds me of Teddy Kennedy's eulogy for Bobby, when he said some people see things the way they are
Yeah.
and ask why. And Bobby asks, he looks at things the way they can be and says, why not?
Yeah?
That's
Yeah?
very consistent.
Yeah, wonderful.
A lot of things come to mind. It's been a long time since I've been here. I don't even have my name tag here anymore, but fear and embracing is something that comes to mind for me, And one of the phrases that I've been using lately, it just came out of me. I don't know how or why, but the phrase, "That was the best mistake I made."
Oh, I like that.
And if I hadn't made mistakes and grown from each of them, they weren't mistakes then. And I think about the young people here as well. Please make more mistakes and don't be and don't think about so much about what you're going to aspire to, but being here now. And don't beat yourself up. And let go of shame. There's so many words and thoughts that come to my mind here, but
That's wonderful. Thank you. Got time for one or two more comments, and then we get some music from Thomas R. Smith. Yes, Kristen.
So I was remembering when I was in a time of major transition, had no idea what was going to happen. Ted made an ink painting of a big yes with an exclamation point and gave it to me. And that was sort of my guidepost. Yes. Being able to say yes.
Maybe I'll make those up and bring some yes postcards here. And they make also very good bookmarks. Any other questions or comments? So what did I forget? What did I leave out that you noticed? A poem, yes. This is called Begin Again. An unruly flight of Canada honkers angles north over our heads. They don't do straight lines or arrows, but keep rearranging their patterns while they negotiate directions and who is leading. They might be Unitarians. It's hard to tell from this distance. The forest pharmacy is open this morning. I carry home a fallen birch limb whose inner bark has a healing balm for those of us with birch bark skin that burns, peels, and sometimes rots. In this wild abundance, it is time to begin again.